Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Safe Schools Rainbow Roundtable. I'm Dr. Dan and it's a pleasure to have you join us. Today we delve into a critical and timely theme, redefining queerness in the 21st century. This episode is a journey through the multifaceted experiences of LGBTQ+ youth as we explore how their relationships can redefine and transcend traditional norms. Today's conversation will uncover what truly makes LGBTQ+ relationships thrive. From the importance of assurances and supportive social networks to mastering the art of developing ethical codes of conduct. We're going deep into the specifics of what these relationships need to flourish, especially in an ever-evolving social and legal landscape. We have an incredible lineup of panelists ready to share their insights. But before we hear from them, let me give you a glimpse of our journey ahead. We'll start with a journey through history and our historical overview, exploring the roots and evolution of LGBTQ+ activism and how it shapes today's relationship dynamics. Then, in real-life experiences, we'll share fictional stories illuminating how LGBTQ+ youth navigate the complexities of relationships, challenging and redefining traditional norms. In our Tools and Resources segment, we'll dive into practical strategies and supports for LGBTQ+ individuals. This will include discussions on platonic relationships, the nuances of romantic connections across the spectrum of sexuality and gender identity, and how ethical frameworks can enrich these relationships. And finally, in the Future Outlook, we'll envision the future of LGBTQ+ relationships. We'll explore how these connections continue to redefine themselves in the 21st century and how expanding queerness can deepen intersectional connections, breaking free from the confines of heteronormative structures of the past. Now, let's meet our Safe Schools Rainbow Roundtable panelists. Each have unique knowledge and experience. This is Harold Marrero. Harold is the Chief Operating Officer of Safe Schools. Welcome, Harold.
Thank you, Dan. I'm so happy to be here.
Glad to have you here as well. And we also have Tiffany Williams. She is the Director of Outreach for Safe Schools and is host of the popular show Tiffany Explains It All. Welcome, Tiffany.
Hi, Dan. I'm really looking forward to today's topics and discussions.
I am too. And then we have Ame Leon. They are the Executive Director of Reflect Collective, an organization that serves queer, trans, POC survivors of sexual and domestic violence in South Florida. Welcome, Ame.
Welcome, and thank you for having me here.
Pleasure to have you. And then we have David Torres. David is a Miami-Dade public school student. Welcome, David.
Hello, thank you for having me once again.
Of course. And then we have Jalea Prendergast. Jalea is a Miami-Dade public school student as well.
Hello, thank you guys for letting me join you guys today.
Happy to have you. So thank you, panelists. With such a wealth of expertise at our table, we're set for a meaningful exploration. In this segment, we're going to explore real-life experiences of LGBTQ+ youth. These fictional stories will highlight how today's youth are redefining romantic and platonic relationships, embracing authenticity over traditional norms. Let's start with Jamie. Jamie, a 17-year-old high school student, recently started to explore their queer identity. Unsure about diving into the dating world, Jamie decided to date themselves, exploring personal interests like painting and cycling. Realizing the importance of community, Jamie also began attending local LGBTQ+ youth group meetings, forming friendships that provided a safe space for self-expression. These steps helped Jamie understand the importance of self-love and community support in forming healthy relationships. Next, we meet Alex. Alex always considered themselves straight until a close friend pointed out traits that might suggest otherwise. At first, Alex was hesitant, but with time, they embraced their queer identity. This journey was a testament to the power of friendship and open-mindedness in discovering one's authentic self. Then there's Taylor, who found love in an unexpected place. A passionate bird watcher, Taylor met their partner during a nature walk. This story highlights the idea that queer relationships can flourish outside traditional queer spaces, reminding us that love can be found in shared interests and hobbies. Our fourth story involves Jordan, who faced anxiety about physical intimacy in their queer relationship. Through open communication and understanding with their partner, Jordan learned to navigate these new experiences with a sense of humor and patience, emphasizing the importance of vulnerability and mutual support. Finally, we have Riley and Sam, who are in their first queer relationship. They had to unlearn the traditional power dynamics often seen in heterosexual relationships. By embracing equality and shared decision-making, they created a relationship dynamic that truly represented individual personalities and needs. Panelists, these stories reflect the diversity and complexity of queer relationships among today's youth. How do you see these narratives influencing the future of LGBTQ+ relationships? Do you have any personal experiences you would like to share as well?
First off, I just think that like these experiences are just normal experiences, which is beautiful because it's like it stops it from being like, oh, these are gay experiences, these are different, these are other people doing weird things that we don't know of. It's just regular romantic experiences, which is kind of what we're trying to achieve. That like it's not different, it's just love. And then it's like, for example, like the bird watching one, that's just like that's just a regular story. And like for like people that don't, for people that are like more bigoted, that don't like this type of content, they think that it's like the most radical thing that they've ever seen. But it's just a natural love story, which is like at the end of the day what we're trying to achieve, what we're trying to like normalize. Like it should be normal because it is normal. There's nothing weird and off about it. It's just a regular romantic relationship between two people that like love each other. So I just think it's beautiful.
I think it was really beautiful. I think it was the last couple where it was like they like navigated through their relationship equally. Because I feel like a lot of times in like LGBTQ relationships, it's who wears the pants in the relationships. And I feel like it perpetuates such a harmful stereotype that someone is the man. And it was nice to hear. And then also Jamie, who they fell in love with themselves first. I feel like personally for me, when I was younger and I was like, oh, I'm queer, I'm gay, I just wanted to jump into a relationship with anyone. And I feel like if I did, it would have led me down like the wrong path of like getting into like an unhealthy or toxic relationship. And I feel like loving yourself first in any relationship is just, it's beneficial for you and whomever you're with. So, yeah.
Can you say more about how loving yourself first shifted things for you?
Sure. I just feel like if I just kind of hopped into a relationship, I would be more focused on what my partner wanted. And then it would lead to just an unhealthy mess for myself. And like, I think it would just lead for me to feel trapped in a relationship. So, like if I don't love myself, it sounds weird, but
No.
I know. I just like, it's just hard to explain because I feel like self-love, it's kind of, I guess it's like a trend now in 2023, manifesting for yourself. But I just feel like a lot of people lack it. And especially like, I have a godfather he's gay. And there's so much internalized homophobia there. And I feel like he's always on the search for like a new thing, a new boo. And I just feel like if he loved himself and put himself first and like really explored what being gay means to him, it would just lead him to a healthier mentality when it comes to relationships and to who he is.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
That's like Santa RuPaul said.
Santa RuPaul. But I can, going back to that, of talking about basically learning to love yourself, you know, and again, nowadays that's like a topic, like everybody's like, oh, self-love. I'm totally, yes, I'm going to love myself. Like, listen, easier said than done, because I was that high school person who got into a relationship because I didn't love myself. And I didn't even get a chance to explore my queerness at the time because I was really anxious. I think the first time I actually explored like gender roles was in middle school with my best friend. And she was she was a bigger girl. We were both big girls, but she was like taller. So like if I put on her jackets, they were like really baggy. So I would put her on her jackets and like I would put on her beanies and like I would put my hair all up in the beanie. And I looked more like masculine looking. And when I saw myself in the mirror for the first time, I was like, I kind of like what I see. Like it was just a new concept for me, but I was just like, I wanted to explore it. But I remember I got caught by my mom and she was just like, what are you doing? Latin mother was like freaking and I was like, oh, well, I guess can't do this anymore. This is, I guess, a no-no. And I agree, when you don't love yourself and you get into a relationship, especially when you're so young and you're so impressionable, and at the end of the day, you're trying to seek the love that you don't have for yourself in someone else. And it didn't end well for me and this person. It was actually really, really toxic. And anytime I talk to like the youth and I'm like, listen, I know everybody's like singing Kumbaya. And it's like, love yourself. Like, listen, self-acceptance. That's all I'm asking. Like, I'm not here to tell you or have you look in a mirror and be like, tell yourself you love yourself. Because sometimes that's a really hard thing for some people to do. And it takes a while to get there. And I think that's such a big lesson all throughout the spectrum. You know, back in like, even I was in high school during the 2010s, okay? And nobody talked about, you know, self-love or like, you know, just the sense of being yourself and being selfish for yourself, not to validate anyone else, was never spoken about. And on top of that, when they used to talk about abusive relationships, you know, they would mention like the physical abuse. Like, oh yeah, if somebody physically hits you, that's abuse. But they never talked about the emotional abuse. They never talked about the mental abuse. And there's so much, like that's such a big gray area and nobody wants to talk about it. Why? Because mental health, what? That's not a real thing. I can't physically touch that. So it's not real. Like, you know, it's very real. And a lot of the people in our community suffer from that. And on top of that, we have generational trauma on top of that in other spectrums in our own community. So it's like there's all these like pathways to like issues. And it's like when you try to help one person out and then you have another person's like, well, I can't do that. So that means you're wrong. And I can't handle that. How dare you be like so comfortable with yourself? How dare you love yourself so much? And I can't even do that because it makes them feel uncomfortable because they want that, but they don't know how to get to that.
Right.
Well, I just want to add just like another perspective about this because I mean, I'm still like relatively young, like 26, not too far off, but you know, I also, I think, attended high school like around like the 2010s. And when I started and I went into relationships, I never stopped, actually. So I learned to love myself through relationships. And the reason why is because I'm polyamorous. So I had multiple relationships. And through those multiple relationships, I was able to like navigate self-love within relationships. And the thing is that sometimes people think, oh, because I don't love myself, I don't deserve love. And that's not true. You know, just because you don't love yourself doesn't mean that you can't have love. And you can have love in multiple ways, you know, and because I'm polyamorous, you know, I see love in those multiple ways through platonic relationships, through familial relationships, heck, through work relationships even, you know. There's so many ways to introduce love into your life besides romance. And I just want to tell people who are struggling with like self-love that even if you don't love yourself right now, that doesn't mean that you aren't deserving of love. You are. And maybe right now you're not ready for a romantic relationship, but that doesn't mean that you can't find love in another way. And if I had somebody tell that to me when I was young, I don't think I would have been in the abusive relationships that I was, you know? So
I think it's great that you found self-love through like your relationships and like to build yourself up as a person while holding like a relationship. And I think that's very difficult. But it's also, I think self-love, it can be defined by every different person like in their own way. And I think it's more important like for a lot of people to really come to terms with who you are and to understand who you are first, because there's people that just attach themselves like
absolutely
to other people and let other people define them as people. Instead of like being an individual, you're more of like a relationship. It's not just me, it's me and this person. So I think that it's like, it really has to do with, you have to grow as a person to be able to love someone else fully. Because if you don't love yourself, you can't give something that you don't have. And also like you project onto other people what you think that they are and what you want to reflect in yourself. But at the end of the day, it really is about self-love, that you can't, what I said, I can't give someone something that you don't have.
Yeah, so what you're terming right now is a phenomenon called codependency.
Yeah.
So codependency is, for those of you who don't know, is when somebody basically loses their identity in a relationship with another person. So think of you as the circle and the other person as this circle. This is codependency, right? Usually in relationships, you kind of want like a little Venn diagram kind of thing like that. And then sometimes you also have relationships where it's just completely off. We want a little happy medium, right? And so when you are codependent, you start saying yes to things you don't want to say yes to. You start tying your identity to the other person without really even knowing what your identity is yourself. And that's when things can get really, really toxic. And that's totally valid to say that, like, you know, a lot of that does come from like work on like self-love, work on who are we, like that identity building. That's something that we have to do ourselves. And it just goes to show that, like, even though we like you were saying, like when we have those like dynamics where we are like codependent, remember, like, even if you are stuck right now, it doesn't mean that you can't do this later, right? So through our relationships, we learn more and more and more about ourselves. And that's how we're able to grow and become the people that we are today, right? So it's like I said, totally valid to find self-love, totally valid to find yourself before relationship. But also remember that it's through relationships that we also find ourselves as well. And you know, that happens like over time. Like
yeah. And as well as exploring like how you are through relationships can help you influence like who you are as a person. You also have to like keep in consideration like attachment styles. Like for example, like the end goal is like to have a secure and comfortable attachment style with yourself and your partner. But if you are somebody that is very anxious, is very like avoidant, that can really like, it's good to have the experience of relationships to help you really like grow and mature from it.
And even know what you are.
Yeah, because at the beginning, it's just more of like no one really knows their own attachment style until you've experienced it firsthand. Like, how am I going to be in this relationship? And like how you said that you learn who you are through relationships as well, because through the more experiences, the life experiences that you go and like gather, you can become more of like an independent and secure person in how you are. And instead of having the whole codependent factor, you can like have that, I'm with this person comfortably and we do things together. Like we're comfortable, but we're both individuals and we like respect each other and respect ourselves.
Diagram. Yeah. That's exactly it.
Yeah, I think this conversation is crucial, especially for, you know, the not just youth today, but overall the entirety of the LGBTQ plus community, because our examples of relationships come from, let's be honest, sometimes very toxic heteronormative ways of being.
True.
Like you said, who wears the pants? I mean, I'm glad they asked you who wears or they asked someone who wears the pants, because both genders can wear pants. You know, they don't ask you like who's the girl or you know who's doing what, and that gets really annoying. But I love that you talk about self-love, and you brought in polyamory and how to love yourself through relationships. You know, these are both crucial points, and you talked about how some people just can't see that and they feel very threatened by that. And I feel like the way that people feel threatened is because they're seeing the young generations like millennials, Gen Z, and now Gen Alpha. They're seeing them be themselves more authentically, more honestly, and the ones that the adults that really wanted, they're like, yeah, you do it, go do that. But the ones that are kind of like jealous and they are not able to reconcile that, they're going to be very against it, and that's they're spiteful, and they show it through their actions. So these conversations are crucial. So I'm really happy that we're having these conversations today.
I love this topic that we're going through right now, and I think it really highlights that relationships can not only be healing, but they can also be very revealing. That we can learn so much about ourselves and our partners, whether that's a romantic partner or friendship, about each other, about relationships and what we need, how we need to grow, and how we can heal together and on our own.